Hey everybody, welcome to the morning market briefing. It's Monday, April 13th, 2026. Hope you're doing well out there. Hope you had a good weekend. We're going to talk Iran-U.S. negotiations. We've got earnings trickling through already with Goldman Sachs doing a rare Monday report, and all kinds of good stuff coming up your way. Boys, how was the weekend?
I'm sad it's over, We got to wait
Yeah.
a whole nother year till Christmas,
Yeah.
It
was a good weekend.
Yeah.
It's good. I feel a lot better today than I did Friday. I can tell you that.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
That's big.
Friday was
Struggling?
big time fever, body aches.
Oh, really?
Yeah. One time, Andrew was gone most. You were
Yeah.
kind of driving, meeting clients, etc. At lunch, I actually was feeling so cold and feverish that I went outside and just lay with my back on the grass outside. I come back in and Tom's like, "What's on your back?"
There's grass.
Yeah.
Some people would go home if they feel sick. Ben does a grass nap. So
Yeah.
it's just like a cow.
Big grass guy.
He's a big grass guy.
Speaking, you may have had the same thing that famous Chinese golfer Hao Tong Li had.
Oh, man.
All-time great interview where he said, and I quote, "I feel like I live in toilet."
He played like it. He played like it.
It's an all-time interview. They're like, "So how was your night?" And he's just like, "Man, I'd be on toilet. I feel like I live in toilet." It's like this guy just immediately jumped up the rankings in my mind of like most fun golfers.
Yeah. I mean, he got a 10 on what hole was that?
I have no idea. I wasn't paying a lot of attention to his actual golfing.
Well, it was funny because he was playing with Scotty.
And then they stopped showing
And then
him
they
after
didn't
a
show
while.
Scheffler for a while. And I was like, man, he must just be absolutely imploding. And then they cut back to him and they were like,
Hao Tong
Lee is staring down a putt for 10, and this is after he lost his ball in the woods for quite some time. And Scotty Scheffler was just standing there waiting to hit his third shot and had been there for, it must have been half an hour.
You follow the Instagram art, but make it sports but make it art.
Yeah.
And it's like where they take famous things that have happened in sports and they immediately find like a famous painting that looks pretty similar to what's
like
happening.
Woman exiting the woods or whatever.
Yeah. There's a picture of Hao Tong Li standing in the woods. It was pretty
very good.
He put it on his own Instagram, so credit him for being.
There was another guy, I can't remember who it was, but he posted a thing, and it was like, if Hao Tong Li has 1.6 billion fans worldwide, I am one of them. If he has 10, I am one of them. If he has 1, I am the fan. If he has none, I am no longer of this earth.
Yeah.
So there you go. All
Golf,
right.
though, I think is illegal in China. Go.
Is it?
I think for a long time it was. I think there's like 6 golf courses in China. I'm going to do some research on that, but I think it was legal until very recently, if not still so.
We'll talk negotiations here. Vance went over, did the negotiation thing. Unsurprisingly, I think to probably everyone, regardless of your view of the conflict, no resolution was reached. Ben, I'm curious your high-level thoughts, and then I have 2 or 3 comments.
Yeah, I mean, I think, first of all, the U.S. side framed it as an agreement on most points, but not on Iran ending its nuclear ambitions. And then Iran said it was a failure to gain trust and excessive and illegal demands. But both sides kind of downplayed, like, this is the end. I mean, they kind of said, well, the negotiation failed. But, I mean, it seems like another round of negotiations is going to start. And I never really thought that it was always weird that the negotiations had been delayed to the extent that they were. I think the ceasefire was announced, was it Monday night?
Yeah.
Because we came in Tuesday and things were a little bit better. And then Vance didn't start talking to them until Saturday morning. So, I mean, and they went for a long period of time, 21 hours. They were definitely going back and forth. I don't think either side, and I know Vance was going back and forth with Trump, but I don't know if anyone really expected to make a deal. I know we listen to Two-Way. Mark Halperin often has an inside track, especially as an inside track to Susie Wiles. A couple things to note. One, he says he's very confident that Donald Trump leaked that story to the New York Times that said Vance was against it going in initially. And the second is he said that there wasn't a world where he really thought there was ever going to be a deal. And he said that on Friday. He said that these just aren't going to amount to anything. So I don't think it's a surprise, and I think we're kind of, for that reason, we're kind of status quo to where we were, frankly, on Friday, and that is Trump wants out, and I think that what they're trying to do is maybe reframe this as, yeah, we want the nuclear ambitions done. That is our number one priority, and Vance basically walking out saying, with now it in the public zeitgeist that he was against it, but he's still saying they need to come. He was against it originally going into Iran, but now is saying, we need some deal on the nuclear side. I think gives him a little bit more credibility there. And I think it also gives some negotiating power on something that could probably be achieved simply by saying, oh, wait, they don't have enrichment capabilities anymore.
Yeah.
So
I thought sending Vance was the correct strategic move, and not even just politically. I think it's easy to get kind of skeptical of things like this and say, well, they're sending Vance because he's the token opposer to this action, and it'll look good for him politically, and it'll look like Trump sending the right level-headed guy in there. I think he was the right guy to go in, period. I think that was, in a world in which a deal was to be reached, it would stand to reason that sending someone that was not in favor of the military action in the first place, they're going to have a better chance of getting that done. So I think that was the right strategic move. There's some reporting coming out with more details. Essentially, the U.S., according to reporting, has offered to release a portion of Iran's frozen funds and end the war. They wanted a 20-year enrichment freeze, removal of all enriched material from Iran, and free navigation through the Strait of Hormuz with no tolls. What's interesting to me is, according to this reporting, the Iranian delegation discussed the nuclear issue, but ultimately came to an impasse. And not only did they discuss it and get nowhere with it, but they didn't have approval to discuss it. So we're just miles and miles apart in terms of what could have happened in that meeting, and you have to think that was known ahead of time. It's not like they showed up and said, oh, I thought we were going to talk about get something done on the nuclear side. I'm shocked that you're not willing to do so. I tend to think as much as Trump wants out, I tend to think that the logical next step is going to be further escalation militarily. And I know that I've had maybe a differing view from consensus on the timeline of things in the past, but I actually think we're going to see another ramp up here. I don't think that the U.S. presence there is going away, and I think there's going to be more action. And it may be that Iran instigates the ramp up. I'm not sure, but I don't know if you guys have thoughts. But I would agree with you from a negotiation standpoint, from a resolution standpoint. I would agree with you that we're basically where we were Friday. In my opinion, the internal temperature's hotter, even though it went exactly as it was expected.
I mean, I think you're correct. I think that clearly Iran has not felt enough pain to negotiate the way that Donald Trump wants them to, and so I think that he's going to inflict more pain. And I think that the beginning of that is by the embargo.
Yeah.
Where it's like, oh, you think you've got leverage on us? Well, guess what? We're just going to have everybody come to Louisiana and pick up their oil there and see how that works out for you. And then if they continue to be rascally, as they like to be, then we're probably going to end up blowing up their infrastructure and bridges. I mean, that's still on the table. Just because there's a ceasefire doesn't mean we can't go ahead and do that right away. And then I think after that, they probably say, all right, well, let's sit back down at the table, and how do you feel now? You
mentioned the blockade. Curious if you guys have a thought. Why haven't we done that sooner?
I was about to ask that question.
Because if you think about it, essentially Iran's not letting anything through unless they want it to go through. There is an underrated part of the story, I think. Story time with Andrew real quick timeout. And I'm going to frame this. I'm coming back to a point, but there's all these mines supposedly in the Strait of Hormuz, and this weekend there was a lot of reporting of like, Iran's trying to get them out, but they don't even really know where they are. They don't know how to do it. They're not sure. That may or may not be true. I was in college one time, and I was getting a parking ticket, which, that happens. And it was downtown Athens. It wasn't the campus police, and the cop that came was like my age, very young. And so I was just making conversation, blah, blah, blah. I mean, like, saw him writing the parking ticket. And I was like, do you like being a cop? Just making conversation, trying to see what what can happen. I unbuttoned the top button of my shirt and was just laying all the moves out there. And he was like, I enjoy the work, but not doing it here. And I was like, what do you mean by that? And he was like, Athens Clark County Police, they're so corrupt and incompetent. You got to pick one. You can't be corrupt and incompetent. And I think about that a lot. And I thought about it over the weekend as it relates to the mines. You could be incompetent and just not know where they are. You could be corrupt and know exactly where they are. You can't be both. And I think that's, as leadership has so far been depleted and will continue to be depleted, the less functional it's going to be for Iran to get a negotiation done or to fight back with a real intentionality or a real plan. But it's crazy to me that we have them in control, not letting ships out, and we're just now saying, well, let's just not let ships in. Like, that seems like we could have done that weeks ago.
Yeah, I do feel like there's a more of a – I think the U.S. did not plan to have the Strait of Hormuz shut, or the response from ships not to be afraid to go through. I think – for all the planning that took place, I think that was underplanned for. And I think that it's taken a while to get this. And maybe it required the ceasefire deal to happen. Because now that you have the ceasefire, if something – I mean, it's a classic I'm not touching you situation. This is the same thing about Chinese airplanes flying into Taiwanese airspace. Mm-hmm. It's, oh, no, we're just here. Like, we're not firing anything. Yeah. We're just you guys fire the first shot. I'm not touching you. And I feel like that's kind of what's going on with the blockade. And I think that is and I don't think Iran is going to fire the first shot. I mean, that's typically not what they do. Cuz they're, at the end of the day, they like to pretend that they have the moral high ground. And I think that this is actually could really work out in the favor of, at least economically. I mean, in all of this, I mean, I think the main thing that we really want to decipher as stewards of capital is what's going to happen to the economy and how it's going to and its impact on markets. And I think from that perspective, I think that this actually, if you push the narrative forward, I think you can devise a scenario whereby the strait does open up again.
I mean, I think that if the market was really worried that this was a bad idea, the market would be down more.
Yeah.
I mean, it's,
I think perhaps the one thing that's maybe I would not be surprised. I think the not touching you game, Ben, if I go back to the story time with Andrew and think of corruption and incompetence crossing, I think there is going to be some not touching you, and then boom, shots fired, not by the U.S. At some point. And if you said, hey, what's one weird prediction? I don't know if it's unpopular. I think we are going to see higher oil than we've seen so far in this conflict. Maybe just briefly, but I tend to think this should expedite opening the strait. I'm not confident that it will. I think if both parties are acting logically, they feel the pressure and, okay, let's get this thing open. I just don't know that that's going to happen.
I mean, the indication seems to be that the embargo involves all Iranian ports, not just the Strait. And I don't know much about the desert, but it seems like natural resources would be hard to come by. I mean, you basically got oil and dates. So the question is,
that's all Hicks
needs.
Like
the pressure from lack of supplies of normal daily life, like how quickly does that ramp up? And, you've got trading partners like China that would very much like to sell things and buy oil in Iran. They're not going to be able to do anything. And it seems like the indication that the infrastructure being blown up was a real pain point for China, because that's ultimately what necessitated the talks in the first place and the ceasefire. So the question is this the right move? And is the market reading China's going to get in here and be like, hey, we got to clean this up?
And I think that's the read. Because, I mean, we know that, Iran is going to continue to try to hold their ground as much as they possibly can.
Yep.
Because that's the MO.
Well, as they say, don't build your house on sand. Though bringing it back to China, golf is not outright illegal in China, but it's heavily restricted, and there's been a ban of new golf courses since 2004. And in 2017, there was a crackdown where they shut 111 golf courses, and the reasoning is that it's considered a bourgeois pastime, and that it leads to corruption, elitism, and ironically environmental concerns from China. And so it's
Right, we don't want people walking around outside.
but it estimates that there are 358,000 golfers in China.
It's not many.
There are probably 358,000
In
golfers
Atlanta.
within 50 miles
Yeah.
of where we sit right now.
That's crazy.
Yeah, so
Who
yeah.
knew golf was such a bad boy sport?
and
there?
no member of the Chinese Communist Party is allowed to hold a golf membership because it's a bad look. So it's not totally illegal. Also, I learned that independently of Scotland, in the 11th century, the Song dynasty developed a game called Chuiwan, which was functionally exactly the same game as golf. So they managed to develop their own version of golf, which I'd never heard of, called Chuiwan, but it's basically the exact same game. So there you go. Learned a lot today on the podcast.
Yeah, we're getting there.
But I did have that in the back of my head. Like, I think it's illegal there, but the answer is it's sort of illegal.
Only the bad boys play.
Yeah.
Tom, Polypeptide Group, AG getting approached by private equity.
I mean, it seems
you're
like
the resident peptide expert.
I mean, I've been watching this pretty closely. It looks like Hims is about to potentially start rolling out BHP 157, which is like the healing peptide. That there's a lot of chatter that the FDA, in short order, is going to reclassify a number of these peptides as Category 1. What that involves exactly, I'm not sure, but I think it's like you can kind of make it more regularly. I think it's the future, man. I think peptides is the future. I think that getting blood work, sort of being your own doctor, is more effective than modern medicine. So let's get it going. Let's get it popping. Let's get the prices down. Let's make it more regulated, so the boys can start injecting themselves at home with all kinds of experimental.
It's gonna be super fun.
Yeah, but naturally occurring chemicals.
Yeah.
So, I mean, GLP-1, like the real thing is like Eli Lilly's made a lot of money on GLP-1s, and there's a lot of like, oh, they spent a lot of time developing. Technically, if you look into the actual details of it, what they have patented is the delivery system. So the pen, the titration strategy, how you get up to snuff on actually taking it.
But they didn't create it.
They didn't create it. These are naturally. That's like saying I have a patent on insulin or I have a patent on vitamin B12, and so. The question is Eli Lilly actually going the way of golf in China, which is it's corrupt, it's elite, and their environmental concerns, when we can all just be walking around jacked and tan and full of Wolverine chemicals that make us heal immediately.
It's the dream.
And maybe they're not a Hall of Fame stock. Maybe they're actually a horrible global evil like the game of golf.
Ben, Goldman Sachs with a rare Monday morning earnings report. What were the big themes?
I think we can pull up the balance sheet, Jonathan. The balance sheet is
Who's Jonathan?
Who's Jonathan?
Oh, Hicks.
Oh yeah.
This is one of the more stunning bank balance sheets that I've ever seen on a quarter-over-quarter basis that doesn't involve COVID and doesn't involve an acquisition. If you look at it just on a quarter-over-quarter basis, every entity is essentially up. Every category, cash, collateralized agreements, every asset, every liability, they've massively grossed up their balance sheet over the last quarter. And I think the reason for that is that the bank deregulation, they increased their leverage ratio, and I think they're getting after it. And you saw investment banking fees accelerate to 48% on a year-over-year basis, which actually, it's over a very easy compare. The one issue that they did have was that their fixed income traders did not do a very good job this quarter. And for that reason, I think the stock is down quite a bit, and it was over an easy comp too. So they've got some work to do there. They blamed higher rates on mortgages and lack of intermediation opportunities, but I don't know what's going on in their fixed income, currency, and commodity business, but it wasn't great. And so Goldman's down. But I would say the core of their business, they're getting bigger, not smaller, into an improving economy, and that should be a good thing. So I wouldn't be surprised. And by the way, they're doing it with headcount that's flat year over year. So if they talk about efficiency and getting 10% larger without an increase in headcount,
They're backing it up.
Yeah, I think the stock is gonna could actually flip. They could paint a positive narrative, and if they do, but the question is, will they do that on the call at 9:30?
Fastenal down a little bit despite seeing what seems to be broad-based improvement.
This is so the issue with Fastenal is they over-disclose. So they give, kind of like Costco, they give you monthly sales. And so we already knew a lot of the positive reports. And Hicks, if we can pull up the sequential trends chart on Fastenal. But you're seeing, so the way to read this is those two red circles. We went from, you have your actual daily sales rate, and then you have your delta versus benchmark. And if the delta versus benchmark is negative, it means that you're worse than normal. And if the delta versus benchmark is positive, it means you're better than normal. So in the first 3 months of the year, we're running almost 4% better than normal, which is really good news and is supportive of their comment that their broader market conditions have begun to improve. They're seeing real good growth in heavy manufacturing, and they're seeing remarkable growth in non-residential construction, which is up 17%.
Man.
So Fastenal basically saying what we've been talking about for a long period of time, at least in the last 6 weeks, and that is we are seeing some real market improvement in the manufacturing side of the economy and in sides of the economy that were really left for dead over the past 4 years, and that's finally beginning to turn. And that's happening without interest rates coming down. So I think this is good news for the overall where the overall economy is positioned. I think Fastenal supports it. I think Goldman Sachs supports it. They're leaning into it. And if we get some resolution on this war, get some oil price containment, and get some relief on interest rates, I think we're ready to rock and roll.
Let's go, baby. America's back. All right, we'll wrap it up there. We will be back tomorrow. Hope you guys have a great Monday. Great start to the week. Talk to you soon.